In the headlines, flight disruptions and crowd hysteria at Ben Gurion International Airport. Direct missile exchanges between Israel and Iran have triggered massive queues and widespread panic, forcing several global carriers to suspend operations, even as the Transport Ministry attempts to keep the airspace open. The International Criminal Court has officially suspended its chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, effective immediately. The shocking move follows a United Nations investigation into serious allegations of sexual misconduct, throwing the future of the court's high-profile global warrants into deep uncertainty. Venezuela's acting president wraps up a high-stakes diplomatic tour. Delcy Rodriguez concluded her visit to Turkey after marathon talks with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Istanbul, successfully expanding a vital trade and energy alliance between Caracas and Ankara. A decisive political shift in the South Caucasus. Armenia's pro-West government has secured a crucial election victory, with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's ruling party sweeping the parliamentary ballot. Trade tensions brew between Manila and Washington. The Philippines is facing a proposed 12.5% tariff hike after the U.S. Trade Representative claimed that local authorities failed to strictly enforce labor regulations, prompting an immediate defensive response from Malacanang. And in sports, New York is placed on high security alert. Extraordinary Secret Service measures shut down parts of Manhattan as President Donald Trump attended Game 3 of the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden, witnessing his hometown Knicks face off against the San Antonio Spurs. I am Carlo de la Peña. Newsline World starts now. For the news, recent direct missile exchanges between Israel and Iran triggered massive queues and operational chaos at Ben Gurion International Airport, prompting carriers to suspend flights as disembarking passengers reported crowd hysteria. This report.
Long, swelling lines have formed across the check-in counters of Tel Aviv's primary aviation hub. After intense overnight exchange of heavy ballistic missiles and fighter jet sorties between the IDF and Iranian forces, multiple international commercial airlines abruptly dropped or modified their flight paths, while Israel's Transport Minister Miri Regev conducted an emergency situational assessment and maintained that national airspace structurally remains open. Low-cost carriers like Wizz Air suspended operations, forcing thousands of stranded travelers to camp inside terminal corridors.
It was very difficult. A lot of people come in very, very bad situation. A lot of women, they want to go out of the plane. So we stay more for half an hour until we know what's going on. They hear the news in the internet is attacked around Tel Aviv, and nobody wants to come to a situation like that.
The civilian anxiety was acutely felt by travelers arriving from the United States, who described scenes of frantic panic on the tarmac before departure. Passengers aboard a Miami flight recounted that as pilots warmed up engines for takeoff, news of sirens and incoming projectile attacks across central Israel flashed on cellular networks, prompting near hysteria. Flight crews were forced to halt taxiing operations for over 30 minutes to allow nearly half the passengers to voluntarily evacuate and disembark from the aircraft before proceeding to Tel Aviv.
ברגע שהמטוס עדיין חיפש את האישור להמראה, כל זמן שהיינו על הרצפה.
המתנה להמראה, הוא התחיל לחמם מנועים, פתאום הייתה השתוללות במטוס.
היסטריה מטורפת במטוס.
היסטריה מטורפת.
In response to the volatile security shift, on this 100th day of the wider conflict, the Home Front Command has formally requested transit authorities to cap the total density inside Ben Gurion Airport to 2,500 individuals at any given time. Though both combatants temporarily halted dynamic strikes following immediate mandates from U.S. President Donald Trump, scheduling logs remain heavily bottlenecked as airlines wait for definitive regional stabilization.
The Middle East has plunged back into all-out conflict after the Israeli Air Force launched destructive two-wave airstrikes deep inside Iranian territory, in retaliation for a massive rocket and missile barrage targeting Israeli cities. Verhil Parba has the story.
The fragile regional truce has shattered completely on the 100th day since the first joint U.S.-Israeli campaign in Iran. Breaking the two-month operational lull, Israel deployed dozens of fighter jets to execute a multi-wave offensive against strategic sites inside the Islamic Republic. IDF spokesperson confirmed the first wave systematically neutralized Iran's primary air defense layers, while the second wave directly targeted a massive Mashhad petrochemical complex in southwestern Iran, a facility intelligence analysts pin as a critical production hub for Tehran's ballistic missile program.
הבוקר, צה"ל יצא לשני גלי תקיפה לעבר מטרות של משטר הטרור האיראני. בגל התקיפה הראשון, עשרות מטוסי קרב תקפו מערכות הגנה המהוות את שכבת ההגנה של המשטר. בגל התקיפה השני, תקפנו את המתחם הפטרוכימי במעשהר שבדרום מערב איראן. במתחם הזה יוצרו חומרים ורכיבים חיוניים לתוכנית הטילים של המשטר. משטר הטרור האיראני בחר שוב בטרור ומנסה לייצר מציאות של משוואות.
The heavy airstrikes were triggered by a massive Iranian ballistic missile barrage launched late Sunday night. Tehran declared the cross-border strikes were a direct response to recent Israeli bombardments targeting Hezbollah strongholds in the Daheye district of Beirut. In an audio address, Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf firstly defended the escalation, claiming that tactical military operations and diplomatic maneuvers must complement one another. Ghalibaf accused the US and Israel of triggering the collapse of the truce by enforcing an aggressive maritime blockade on Iranian commercial shipping.
ماجرای لبنان مثال خوبیه که نشون میده میدون دیپلماسی کنار میدون نظامی میتونه اسرائیل و دشمنان رو عقب بزنه. نه دیپلماسی مانع عملیات نظامیه و نه عملیات نظامی مانع دیپلماسیه. صحبت‌هایی هم که رئیس جمهور آمریکا درباره یادداشت تفاهم کرد مخالف بخش‌هایی بود که توافق شده بود. این نشان داد که آنها نه دنبال آتش بس هستند و نه دنبال گفتگو.
The rapid escalation directly defied public mandates from US President Donald Trump, who issued urgent warnings to both nations to stop shooting, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nations, declaring that Israel's military dominance has left its regional adversaries weaker than ever. Defense officials across neighboring Gulf states remain on high alert, fearing a wider multi-front geopolitical spillover. This has been Verhil Parba, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The International Criminal Court has suspended its chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, following ongoing allegations of sexual misconduct. The Hague-based court announced the decision is effective immediately, pending a final ruling on his tenure by the court's oversight body. MJ Mondeja reports.
The announcement was made public in an official statement issued by the International Tribunal recently. The International Criminal Court confirmed that their chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, has been suspended from his prosecutorial duties, while the Assembly of States Parties reviews the case to make a final determination. According to court officials, the decision to issue the immediate suspension was based on a formal report compiled by the United Nations Office of Internal Oversight Services. The assessment also relied on underlying evidence, written submissions from both sides, and direct advice provided by an ad hoc panel of experts. While the court maintained that the specific documentation will remain strictly confidential, a Reuters report citing a diplomatic source said that the Executive Bureau determined Khan committed serious misconduct and recommended his permanent removal. Khan, who had already taken voluntary leave from his position in 2025, has consistently denied all allegations of wrongdoing. The sexual misconduct allegations first surfaced back in 2024, involving claims that Khan coerced a female staff member into a sexual relationship. Investigative documents reviewed by the New York Times indicated that United Nations investigators found evidence of non-consensual sexual contact. However, following a judicial review this past March, judges initially ruled that the findings did not meet the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, allowing the inquiry to continue with additional evidence submissions. The suspension brings an unprecedented wave of scrutiny to the Office of the Prosecutor, which has handled highly controversial international cases during Khan's tenure. Under his leadership, the court issued high-profile arrest warrants for the leaders of both Russia and Israel, despite neither nation recognizing the jurisdiction of the tribunal. In March 2023, the court issued warrants for Russian President Vladimir Putin and children's rights official Maria Lyubova-Belova on charges of unlawfully transferring children from Ukraine. Moscow rejected those charges, stating it evacuated children from an active war zone and reunited them with families when documentation was present. In November 2024, the court issued additional warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant over war crimes charges in Gaza. Netanyahu dismissed those warrants as absurd and false, while the United States government imposed direct financial sanctions on Khan last year over his separate investigation into American troops in Afghanistan and the actions against Israeli officials. The immediate suspension adds to a string of severe legal setbacks for the prosecutor's office over the past year. Back in October 2025, the ICC Appeals Chamber formally disqualified Khan from the specific case of the prosecutor versus Rodrigo Roa Duterte. That historical disqualification stemmed from Khan's professional involvement before he even took office at the court, when he assisted in submitting an Article 15 communication to the former Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been MJ Mondiha, SMNA News.
Venezuela's acting president Delcy Rodriguez held high-stakes talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Istanbul, successfully conducting an international tour designed to diversify economic and energy ties. Virgil Parba tells us more.
The diplomatic tour of Venezuela's acting executive has reached its final stop in Europe. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez convened high-level bilateral talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the presidential office of the historic Dolmabahce Palace in Istanbul. The strategic summit follows an earlier technical meeting between Rodriguez and Turkey's Minister of Energy and Natural Resources Alparslan Bayraktar, focusing on securing deep industrial and commercial commitments between Caracas and Ankara.
El desarrollo económico de Venezuela avanza. Venezuela es una potencia energética, pero queremos ser conocidos no solo por nuestras vastas reservas energéticas, sino también por nuestros inmensos espacios para diversificar nuestra economía, las grandes potencialidades que tiene nuestro país, pero lo más importante, por un pueblo que es un pueblo valiente, que es un pueblo generoso y que es un pueblo que está buscando su propio destino, construyendo su propio destino y garantizando la paz y la estabilidad.
The high-profile meeting wrapped up a multi-nation international itinerary for Rodriguez, coming immediately after her 5-day official working visit to India to secure long-term crude oil export channels. Celebrating Venezuela's economic resilience, Rodriguez announced that Caracas and Ankara have agreed to convene their 5th Joint Cooperation Commission in Venezuela this November. The event will run alongside a massive international trade fair designed to bring Turkish enterprises face-to-face with South American corporations to foster fresh investments in technology, infrastructure, and non-oil manufacturing sectors. While state administrators in Caracas maintain that expanding direct diplomatic pipeline with major Eurasian's hub provides critical economic insulation for the country, international trade analysts view the strengthening alliance as a calculated effort by Venezuela to solidify alternative commercial networks outside traditional Western spheres. This has been Virgil Parba, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Armenia's pro-West government has secured a crucial election victory. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's ruling party won the parliamentary vote, which was the widely billed as a key moment in deciding whether the country continues to move closer to the West. Kai Villan reports.
In Armenia, final counts from Sunday's vote reveal that Pashinyan Center's Civil Contract Party secured 49.8% of the total vote. The Strong Armenia Alliance finished in second place with 23.2%, while the Armenia Alliance landed in third with 9.9%. The election was widely viewed as a direct test of the Prime Minister's ongoing push to deepen national ties with the West, while facing mounting economic pressure from Russia, which remains Armenia's largest trading partner and traditional ally. Pashinyan, who has been in power since 2018, officially declared victory on Monday after early results showed his party had secured the leading position.
The message is the same. People of Armenia voted for peace and regional prosperity, for regional cooperation, and I hope that this will meet positive reactions from Turkey, both from Turkey and from Azerbaijan. We need to institutionalize peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and we need to open our borders with Turkey. I mean, Turkey should open border, and of course we need to establish diplomatic relations.
The election drew significant international attention to Armenia over the weekend. The ballot was the first general election held since the small South Caucasus nation of 3 million people suffered a crushing military defeat by Azerbaijan in 2023. On Monday, France and the European Union were among the key European powers that publicly congratulated Pashinyan, praising Armenia's closer ties with the West. Civil contract success came despite the fact that Pashinyan's domestic support had fallen from 54% in 2021 down to around 30% today, according to recent polls. A total of 19 parties and alliances took part in the high-stakes election, but few of these earned enough votes to gain a seat in the National Assembly. The State Electoral Commission confirmed that final voter turnout stood at 59%. The political shift has met strong opposition from Moscow. The Russian government claimed there was unprecedented pressure placed on opposition parties and alleged direct Western interference in the democratic process. Pashinyan has actively pushed for full European Union membership, though the nation still lacks official candidate status. Meanwhile, Russia has repeatedly warned that maintaining membership in both the European Union and the Eurasian Economic Union is entirely untenable. Addressing the dual economic pathways, Pashinyan stated that Armenia will continue to pursue deeper ties with the EU but will simultaneously remain an active member of the regional bloc.
Но мы продолжим и наше участие членства в Евразийском экономическом союзе, и мы будем развивать наши отношения с Российской Федерацией и другими странами Евразийского экономического союза, и мы, конечно, будем способствовать укреплению связей в рамках Евразийского экономического союза.
Reporting for News and World, Kaivilan, SMN News.
Up next, trade tensions brew between Manila and Washington. The Philippines is facing a proposed 12.5% tariff hike after the U.S. Trade Representative claimed that local authorities failed to strictly enforce labor regulations, from pitying an immediate defensive response from Malacanang. And in sports, New York is placed on high security alert. Extraordinary Secret Service measures shut down parts of Manhattan as President Donald Trump attended Game 3 of the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden, witnessing his hometown Knicks face off against the San Antonio Spurs. Newsline World will be back after this break.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo? Isipin mo ito. Nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika, at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod, pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakaka-depress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan.
Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka na ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman diyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw-araw sa mga kabataan ay konektado sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen, magbasa, makipagkwentuhan, magdasal, maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago. And we're back. Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have held high-stakes talks in Pyongyang, kicking off a major 2-day state visit. The summit marks Xi's first visit to Pyongyang in nearly 7 years, coinciding with a milestone anniversary for the historical alliance. This report from Joy Tabanao.
The diplomatic proceedings between President Xi Jinping and Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un commenced on Monday as the Chinese president arrived in the North Korean capital. Xi said on Monday that the relationship between China and North Korea stands at a new historical starting point. The high-level visit directly coincides with the 65th anniversary of the signing of the 1961 Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance between China and North Korea. At the Kumsusan State Guest House, Xi and Kim posed together for an official photograph. The two leaders then convened formal bilateral talks alongside their respective state delegations. The high-profile Pyongyang summit follows a packed series of diplomatic meetings hosted in Beijing back in May. During those May sessions, Xi Jinping hosted back-to-back meetings with United States President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. To mark the arrival of the Chinese president and celebrate the 65th anniversary of the bilateral treaty, North Korean state media issued a clear political message calling for a unified opposition to hegemonism and power politics. The joint statements reflect the ongoing focus of the two neighboring nations as they look to reinforce their long-standing partnership under the framework of the 1961 Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance Treaty. This has been Joy Tabanao, your global citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
Certain products exported from the Philippines to the United States could soon face an additional tariff increase of up to 12.5%. The proposed duty follows a fresh assessment by the Office of the United States Trade Representative, which claims the country has failed to effectively enforce import prohibitions on goods produced with forced labor. Creslin Catarong has the details.
The economic warning comes directly from the Office of the United States Trade Representative, or USTR. According to the federal agency's findings, current enforcement policies in the Philippines are insufficient to properly block the entry of international goods manufactured through forced labor. As a direct consequence of these findings, Washington has proposed a tiered Section 301 tariff increase that could slap an extra 12.5% tax on various commodities entering the U.S. market from the Philippines. Local trade experts note the potential penalty could heavily burden Filipino businesses and disrupt ongoing export operations across the Pacific. The USTR report places the Philippines among 54 global economies that have allegedly failed to implement and effectively enforce strict legal prohibitions against importing products tied to forced labor. Malacanang Palace moved quickly to address the trade report on Monday. The Office of the President formally acknowledged the regulatory proposal issued by the United States Trade Representative. At a press briefing on Monday, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro emphasized that the Philippine government firmly condemns all forms of forced labor. Castro maintained that state agencies are taking the matter seriously and are currently conducting an in-depth review of the USTR documentation to map out appropriate state responses. Castro stressed that the Philippines has long maintained a strict legal stance against forced labor, utilizing existing national laws and administrative processes to systematically combat the practice.
Kinikilala ng tanggapan ng Pangulo ang proposal ng United States Trade Representatives, USTR, na magpataw ng dagdag na 12.5% na taripa sa ilang produkto ng Pilipinas, alinsunod ito sa Section 301 hinggil sa investigation concerning forced labor enforcement.
The Marcos administration further confirmed that local trade and economic agencies will actively coordinate with the United States official to clarify the enforcement parameters.
Yaan po ang maaaring isagawa at ito po ngayon ay sinusuri kung anong mga dapat na gawin para mapatunayan natin na wala tayong paglabag sa mga aktibidad patungkol sa forced labor.
The government will continuously seek strategic avenues to defend the legal position of the Philippines against allegations of structural enforcement deficiencies regarding forced or compulsory labor. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Kersilin Catarong, SMNI News.
Amid an ongoing leadership battle inside the Senate, a geopolitical analyst warns that the country's global image is taking a serious hit. The warning highlights how deepening political instability and infighting are affecting international perceptions of the Philippines. Daniela Paulite reports.
The image of the Philippines is not good in the eyes of some countries because of the current political situation. According to geopolitical analyst Professor Ana Malindog-Uy, foreign observers are increasingly questioning local developments, raising serious concerns over widespread corruption.
Ang tingin sa atin talaga ng ibang mga lahi parang ang gulo-gulo ng Pilipinas. At the same time, nakikita din nila na ang economy natin is also struggling. So, hindi maganda ang image natin actually sa international community.
Malindog-Uy argues that the root of the problem lies within the current style of leadership and the politicians driving national affairs. She notes that the constitutional principle of checks and balances is rapidly blurring, pointing to the administration's tight grip over both House of Representatives and the Senate.
In our system and in the way we operate as a country, politically speaking, ang nangyayari, even the president has control over the House and even to certain extent of the Senate, when in fact, dapat co-equal branches of government yan at hindi dapat magkakaroon ng clout. But, you know, in a way, mayroong ganon kasi ang ating mga politicians, kung sino ang nasa taas, you know, lahat yan mag-aalyansa doon. So, nabiblur din ang check and balance mo.
The analyst stresses that instead of prioritizing critical legislative bills, the Senate remains heavily consumed by internal power struggles. The ongoing leadership friction stems from a high-profile investigation into a massive flood control anomaly, coupled with the upcoming impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte.
Makikita mo, imbis na ang Senado, i-tackle nila ito based on their job and what need to be done. Ang nangyayari sa kanila, nagpa-power struggle sila kasi they want to control the Senate and they want to control the rules and how all of these major issues like the impeachment trial and even the massive corruption in government in terms of oversight, in terms of investigation, paano nila ko-control favoring one camp over the other.
Despite the escalating political friction across the legislature, The analyst concludes the Supreme Court remains a critical anchor, serving as the ultimate arbiter over state power and the legal interpretation of the law. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulita, Azamani News.
Following the magnitude 7.8 earthquake that struck Mindanao, the Philippine government launched a whole-of-government response to address the impact of the disaster. From relief operations to damage assessment, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. issued a series of directives to key government agencies. Here's a report from Hannah Jane Sancho.
From powerful tremors and mass evacuations to tsunami threats in several coastal areas, the government immediately rolled out a large-scale disaster response following the powerful earthquake that rocked Mindanao. The Philippine government implemented a whole-of-government approach to address the effects of the disaster. According to Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro, President Bongbong Marcos personally ordered the immediate mobilization of various government agencies to ensure a swift and effective response. This came after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck Mindanao on Monday, killing at least 3 people, causing several buildings to collapse and prompting tsunami warnings across different parts of the region.
Binagindiin ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. na kumikilos ang pamahalaan at hindi kailanman pababayaan ang Mindanao sa gitna ng pagsubok na ito.
Reports said the earthquake struck offshore near Maasim, Sarangani, south of General Santos City. As a result, authorities immediately advised residents and coastal communities to evacuate to higher and safer ground. The Office of the Civil Defense and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council have taken the lead in coordinating disaster response operations and monitoring affected areas. Following the powerful quake, the Office of the Civil Defense raised the Operations Center, National Interagency Coordinating Cell, response clusters, and partner agencies to full and red alert status. Among the affected areas are Region 9, 11, and 12, as well as the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM. According to the OCD, power supply and communication lines were also disrupted in some earthquake-hit areas. The president likewise directed the Department of Social Welfare and Development, led by Secretary Rex Gatchalian, to prepare relief assistance and ensure the availability of suitable evacuation centers for displaced residents. The DSW said it remains on standby to provide additional support to local government units for any necessary relief operations in line with President Marcos' directive to ensure that assistance immediately reaches families affected by the disaster. At the same time, the Philippine Red Cross has also been placed on full alert status. It immediately activated 17 volunteers and deployed ambulances to North Cotabato, South Cotabato, and Hingog City to assist affected communities and monitor the situation on the ground. Meanwhile, the Department of Public Works and Highways under Secretary Vince Dizon was instructed to conduct immediate assessments to ensure that routes remain open and safe for rescue and relief operations. As a precaution for the opening of classes, the President also directed the Department of Education, led by Secretary Sonny Angara, to temporarily suspend classes in affected areas while safety assessments are being conducted in schools. The region was also rocked by a series of strong aftershocks nearly 2 hours after the initial earthquake. According to the United States Geological Survey, the strongest aftershock measured magnitude 6.5. Malacanang also urged the public to take all warnings from authorities seriously and immediately follow evacuation protocols to prevent further harm and danger. President Marcos emphasized that the government remains and will not abandon residents affected by the disaster. The government remains on standby as assessment and relief operations continue in areas affected by the earthquake. Malacanang assured the public that the necessary assistance will be delivered swiftly to families in need. For God and beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNA News.
The Philippines dropped to 87th place out of 100 countries when it comes to the quality and affordability of healthcare services, according to the latest healthcare index. Stella Maris for the details.
Despite the recognized excellence of the country's medical workers, the Philippines was pulled down by the high cost of medicines and the lack of adequate facilities in remote provinces. The Philippines received a low score of 32.55 in the 2025 CEO World Magazine Healthcare Index, placing the country in the lower middle cluster in Southeast Asia. Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam are in the same cluster as the Philippines, while Singapore leads the entirety of Asia. In the analysis of data scientists, the Philippines achieved a high score of 73.74 in medical infrastructure and professionals, proving that the country is catching up with world-class facilities and skilled medical workers. However, the country only recorded 53.81 in medicine availability and cost, and 57.45 in government readiness. This score is low compared to the leading countries in the Healthcare Index, which include Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, Canada, and Sweden. According to experts, the so-called out-of-pocket cost, or the money coming directly out of the patient's pocket to buy medicine, is a major blow to ordinary Filipinos. Based on separate data from the Department of Health and the World Health Organization, essential medicines in the Philippines remain up to 3 times more expensive compared to prices in other countries, while branded medicines can be 5 to 22 times pricier. The geographical barrier of modern hospitals also poses a major challenge. Most high-quality hospitals are located in major cities such as Metro Manila, Cebu, and Davao. Because of this, residents in remote provinces are forced to travel for hours and spend heavily just to seek treatment at specialized hospitals. The report emphasized that the Philippine government needs to intensify funding for the universal healthcare law, ensure an adequate supply of medicines in rural health units, and build more public facilities in remote areas so that healthcare becomes accessible to everyone. This has been Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The Filipino-Chinese community gathered at the Philippine International Convention Center to celebrate the 51st anniversary of bilateral relations between the Philippines and China. MJ Mondeja reports.
A night of culture, performances, and friendship. That was the theme of this year's celebration of the 51st anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and China. Formal diplomatic ties between the two countries began on June 9, 1975, during the administration of former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. For many business leaders, the Philippines continues to benefit from business opportunities arising from its relationship with China.
90% ng negosyante dito sa atin is may dugong Chino. Even our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, they have a Chinese blood. Lalo pinapaunlad natin ang ating ekonomiya dahil sa karamihan dito is may dugong Chinong negosyante.
In this event, we've proven that China and Filipinos are friends forever.
Former Philippine Senator Nicky Coseteng lauded China's advanced health technologies, saying it could greatly benefit the Philippines. Coseteng also stressed the importance of sustaining productive bilateral relations between the two countries.
Because they're willing to share it with us, di ba? Sa larangan ng agrikultura, sa larangan ng kalusugan. Yung cancer doon, madali lang nilang mapagamot, di ba? So, marami tayong pwedeng maging basis ng pagkakaisa at hindi yung alitan at awayan.
Aside from healthcare cooperation, China remains the Philippines' #1 trading partner. For the Association of Philippines-China Understanding or APCU, maintaining good relations between the two countries remains important under the Marcos Jr. administration.
Napakalaki po ng nakukuha po natin sa China, katulad po ng mga kailangan nating pataba sa lupa, fertilizers, supply ng langis, supply ng pagkain at iba't iba pa. So ito yung sinasabi natin na kung meron tayong patuloy na pag-uusap, komunikasyon sa bawat isa, ay hindi lalawak yung hindi pagkakaintindihan.
As the Philippines and China mark another year of diplomatic relations, Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines Jing Tian reaffirmed China's commitment to expanding people-to-people exchanges with the Philippines. He also pledged more cooperation projects in the fields of energy, agriculture, trade, and investment.
more people-to-people exchange, culture, education exchange, and more trade and investment, especially in the areas of clean energy, advanced agriculture, and solar power and wind power, hydropower, and waste to energy.
The Chinese envoy also stressed that China is even prepared to share its technology with the Filipino people. These include infrastructure projects under the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as cooperation in artificial intelligence and digital technology. China is also one of the world's leading producers of electric vehicles.
We can share our technology with the Philippines, with the other neighboring countries. And if we directly bring our technology here, we can improve the economic development here directly to a new level, like AI, like a digital life, right? So there are actually many areas we can work together. But first, let us work together first to stabilize our bilateral relations.
The Chinese representative also expressed hope that both sides will continue pursuing dialogue and understanding on issues concerning the South China Sea. The celebration concluded with the singing of the popular song Peng Yu, or Friend, inside the PICC. Members of the Chinese business community and several Philippine government officials joined in the performance. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been MJ Mondihap, SMNI News.
Sandara Park has expressed her deep gratitude after being given a brand new role as an ambassador for the Overseas Koreans Agency. Alongside a major appointment, the K-pop star also announced her latest solo musical project. Meanwhile, a brand new teaser has dropped for Scooby-Doo Origins, revealing the franchise's first ever real dog, Scooby-Doo. Here's Daniela Paulita for the showbuzz.
K-pop icon Sandara Park has received a fresh honor after being officially appointed as a public relations ambassador for the Overseas Koreans Agency. According to Sandara, her personal experience of living abroad, particularly in the Philippines, has deeply helped her understand the lives and hearts of Koreans living outside of South Korea. The star promised to do her absolute best to serve as a legal and cultural bridge, connecting overseas Koreans directly back to the Republic of Korea. On top of her diplomatic duties, Sandara is also gearing up for a major musical return. She is scheduled to drop her latest solo musical project entitled Reprism this coming June 20. The upcoming launch will mark the South Korean singer's first official solo release since 2023. Her last musical outing was her self-titled Korean debut extended play, which famously featured the hit single Festival. Streaming giant Netflix has dropped the first official teaser clip of Scooby-Doo Origins, giving fans a glimpse of a real dog, Scooby-Doo. The promotional video tracks the floppy-eared canine sniffing around a wooded area before crossing paths with Shaggy Rogers, played by Tanner Hagen. At the tail end of the clip, viewers see the real-life Great Dane puppy sporting his iconic teal collar while being cradled by his new best friend. The historic production choice marks a major departure for the global franchise. Over more than half a century, Scooby-Doo has generated 3 theatrical movies, over a dozen animated series, and nearly 40 animated home entertainment films. But this upcoming project will be the first time the character is portrayed by a real dog. The live-action adventure series is officially scheduled to premiere in 2027. And that's all for now. This is Daniela Paulita bringing you the latest showbuzz.
In sports, extraordinary security measures were enforced around Madison Square Garden as U.S. President Donald Trump attended Game 3 of the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. Meanwhile, Elise Perry starred with a composed half-century as Australia defeated host England by 5 wickets in the Women's T20 World Cup 2026 warm-up match in Cardiff. This report.
Authorities placed the area surrounding Madison Square Garden under a virtual lockdown, restricting access to several blocks around the arena and prohibiting fan watch parties near the venue. Ticket holders were advised to arrive hours before tip-off to undergo airport-style security checks, while bags were banned inside the arena. A heavy security presence, including hundreds of police officers and U.S. Secret Service agents, was deployed to protect the president during his visit. Officials also plan to use counter-drone technology as part of the operation, reflecting heightened security concerns following multiple alleged assassination attempts against Trump in recent years. Despite the disruptions, excitement remained high as the Knicks hosted their first NBA Finals game in decades while holding a 2-0 series lead. The championship run has generated massive interest across New York, with fans packing viewing areas throughout the city as the team pursues its first NBA title since 1973. Meanwhile, chasing 157 for victory at Sophia Gardens, Australia reached the target in just 18.2 overs behind Perry's match-winning 64 off 44 balls. The veteran all-rounder anchored the innings after early wickets and guided the six-time world champions to a comfortable win. England recovered from a shaky start to post 156 over 7 in 20 overs thanks to Alice Capsey's 45 and Furia Kemp's quick-fire 41. The hosts were in trouble at 19 over 3 before the middle order steadied the innings with crucial partnerships. Australia's bowlers set the tone, with Megan Shutt and Elena King claiming 2 wickets each to restrict England's scoring. In reply, Beth Mooney provided an aggressive start with 44 off 26 balls before Perry took control of the chase. She fell just 1 run short of the target, but Australia sealed the victory with 11 balls remaining. England will face India in their next warm-up match, while Australia takes on the West Indies as both teams continue preparations for the Women's T20 World Cup. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. You cannot defeat darkness by darkness, evil by evil, and hate by hate. You can only defeat darkness by light, evil by good, and hate by love. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Carlo de la Peña. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.